Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Yankees make a few transactions, and this was expected considering that this was the non-tender deadline. So the Yankees, who had a 40-man roster, well, now it's at 36. The Yankees trade Jake Bauers to the Milwaukee Brewers, and they non-tender Lou Trivino, Albert Abreu, and Anthony Misiewicz. And can't say I disagree with any of these moves in particular. Trivino, I thought was interesting. So now that Montas trade that also had Trivino in it, now both of them are free agents. Not saying I have a problem with Montas staying away from the Yankees, but Trivino actually really wasn't terrible as a Yankee and played somewhat of a big role down the stretch last season. So he got Tommy John surgery early in this season. He probably will be ready to go, if all goes well, by the middle of next season, I would think. And he was owed $4 million. So that, I think, was seen as too much, considering the fact that he was probably going to miss half the season. I mean, that's absolutely the reason why. The injury, and we've seen that before with the Yankees, where they have these relievers and they get hurt on a long-term injury, and they let him go. And and sometimes you see reunions, like in the case of Tommy Kahnle, where he was with the Dodgers very briefly. Yankees brought him back. So maybe Lou Trivino hasn't seen his last days as a Yankee, but they do let him go. And he put up some good numbers at the end of 2022. 21 2/3 innings, 22 strikeouts, 1.66 ERA. And even in the postseason, he had a hold, had 4 outings, 3 2/3 innings, only 2 hits, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. Was actually really good. I think what I most remember him for, though, was he came in for Garrett Cole in Game 3 against the Astros in the ALCS and did struggle, from what I remember, or at least gave up some of those runs by Cole. I think it was a bases-loaded no-out spot. Yankees were down, if I remember correctly, about 2-0, maybe the 6th inning or so. And so, but yeah, thought that could have I actually was intrigued by that part of the trade with Oakland, but Trivino non-tendered. Jake Bauers traded to the Milwaukee Brewers, and can't say I have any problem with this. So Bauers was someone who was a non-roster invitee, spring training invite last season for the Yankees. And, I would say kind of surprised in terms of when he came up, was hitting for power, and that really did continue. Like, the slugging percentage was there. I mean, he had 12 homers and 242 at-bats, which isn't bad, but ultimately not a good defensive player, whether that be at first base, whether that be corner outfield, and he really, really struggled the last couple of months as a Yankee. 95 strikeouts is a lot, considering that, he had a part-time role. The OPS dropped to 692. His batting average was 202. So Bauers, but look, I could understand why a team would be interested in him. So, the days of Bauers and McKinney, who was non-tendered a few weeks back, when Domingo Germán was, amongst others, those aren't players that you want to rely upon. They had much too big a role. Like, Jake Bauers' organizational depth is fine, but I am glad that he is off this roster. I think that there was a temptation there with him. I personally, as much as the Yankees can use left-handed hitting and power, and you could argue that his swing was made for Yankee Stadium, this was the right thing. And hey, not for nothing, but they acquire Jace Avina, who was ranked 29th on MLB.com for Milwaukee Brewer prospects. He's an outfielder. And then another outfielder, Brian Sanchez. Now, these are young players, really young. Avina, I think he might be 20. Yeah, he's 20, and I think Sanchez might be 19. These are lotto tickets. But hey, sometimes, rarely, but sometimes those do, they come to fruition. And, for someone like Jake Bauers to get a couple of potential assets down the line is well worth it. I think that the Brewers probably think that they can make it work with Jake Bauers. They are going in a different direction themselves, where I think that they're going to be cost cutting and, trying to find some kind of bargain bin type moves, and Bauers qualifies as someone like that for them. But the Yankees do acquire Avina and Sanchez, a couple of outfielders. Avina is a right-handed hitter. Sanchez is left-handed. And then finally, the Yankees, get rid of Albert Abreu. Now, I pause in saying that because he, had been traded before by the Yankees. So to go all the way back, Abreu was acquired from the Houston Astros in the Brian McCann deal. So after the 2016 season, the Yankees get Abreu. And look, he was someone that was sought. I mean, he was one of the higher end prospects for the Yankees for a while. I mean, I think he might have been a top 10, top 15 prospect in the system. And I have to believe that the idea was that Abreu would be a starter. Now, that quickly became apparent that wasn't going to be the case, and he became a reliever. And Abreu was up for a couple of games in 2020, didn't really perform well, but really came on with the Yankees in 2021. And I actually kind of thought that he was a little underrated. His ERA was 5.15 that year, but I thought the underlying stats were kind of impressive. And, I thought that there was a chance. Now, he gave up a lot of home runs. I think a lot of that was he gave up a lot of home runs. 8 home runs in 36 and 2/3 inning is a crazy amount at that, but the whip wasn't horrible. The batting average against wasn't terrible. The strikeouts were there to a point. But he was then traded for Jose Trivino. So they make a trade with the Texas Rangers. So then he bounces around from Texas. They designate him for assignment. Kansas City claims him. Then they designate him for assignment, and the Yankees claim him. And Abreu in 2022 wasn't all that bad. Really. He kind of put up somewhat similar numbers to what he did the season before with the Yankees, but limited the home runs. So the ERA was 2 runs better, and everything else was about the same. So look, as a depth piece in the pen, it's fine. But then this past season was just really, really bad. And it's kind of funny. I almost feel like the ERA should have been worse than 4.73. His whip was 1.47. Just really not good. A lot of walks, totally erratic. And by the end of the season, I'm thinking to myself, let's just part ways with Albert Abreu. And that is what happened. So I do agree with that. And then Anthony Misiewicz, not going to talk much on this. One thing I will say is I hope that he is recovered. He took that line drive off the head at Pittsburgh, which was a scary scene. But by all accounts, I believe that he's, okay now. And so that was kind of when I think of him, unfortunately, I think to that. But he's a guy that's bounced around, was barely with the Yankees. So, figured the others deserved a little bit more attention. But, now you go from 40 on the 40-man to 36 currently. So 4 open spots. And what's interesting is you have 6 catchers out of those 36, which is crazy. And so I'm waiting for what the resolution ends up being with, Kyle Higashioka is the one who I look at. And I have to think that a trade is going to be in the works with him. I think that Jose Trivino will stay, would be my guess. Ben Rortvedt, probably as well. I mean, with him, it's kind of a different story where if he were traded, it wouldn't be a surprise. Whatever it is, it is. Hickey's obviously been here for a very long time. So something will come of that. Because 6 catchers on a 40-man roster, there is no way that will last. Nowhere close. So there will be moves to be made there. And then, other than that, I think that the Yankees will probably be fairly active in the days and weeks to come. But again, to recap, Yankees trade Jake Bauers to the Milwaukee Brewers. They get a couple of young prospects in return. And then they non-tender, in other words, release Lou Trivino, Albert Abreu, and Anthony Misiewicz.